and Srinath and Suzanne Wilkinson are up extremely late in the evening. This is a truly global event. As we look at funding, I mean, I think that funding is an extremely crucial part of being an academic and being a researcher. And any advice we can get, um, we really appreciate. And that's what this event is actually about. And I really want to thank Professor Srinath Perera for setting this event up. Srinath is the chair of our Early Career Researcher Network Committee. He is the director for the Center for Smart and Modern Construction. He's a personal chair in the Built Environment and Construction Management at Western Sydney University. He's a chartered quantity surveyor. He's a fellow of the Royal Society of New South Wales and Australian Institute of Builders. He's an incredible colleague for CIB as well too. He's an incredible champion of our global network. He's just an incredible person who's going to lead this event for us. And he has two wonderful early career researchers who've been extremely successful with securing funding. I want to introduce to this group Suzanne Wilkinson, who's a professor of construction management in the new School for Built Environment at Massey University. She is the director of postgraduate studies for the School of Built Environment. She's an associate dean at Massey. She has been extremely successful. Her research focuses on resilience, disaster management, construction innovation, and is going to share with us some advice. She's been a principal investigator on many projects, including a recent 5-year, $10 million New Zealand dollar project where she's the program lead on building capacity. So we extremely are excited to have Suzanne here, and also Professor Dilanthi Amaratunga. She holds the chair in disaster risk management at the University of Huddersfield in the UK. She leads a global disaster resilience center responsible for supporting research on disaster management portfolios. And so both of these panel members have been extremely successful. Srinath, I think you put together an incredible panel. And on behalf of CIB and almost 100 participants that are here today, I really want to thank you and Dilanthi and Suzanne for sharing your thoughts with us today. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Srinath.
Thank you, Mike. First of all, welcome everyone for this early career researcher event. So today what we want to do is to talk about how to apply research grants and funding, and together with us two incredibly successful researchers of our times here as Mike introduced. Welcome Dilanthi and welcome Suzanne. We're really glad to have both of you giving some time trying to help our next generation of researchers in the built environment, construction management, engineering, civil engineering areas to come up. So first of all, what I'm trying to do here is, first I will ask each one of you to give a brief introduction as to your career, how it started, and then how things are, how it progressed over time. And you are in this state currently as one of very successful researchers in the world in construction management today. So I'll start with Dilanthi first. Dilanthi had been a former friend and colleague of mine, and I have worked with both Dilanthi and Suzanne in various platforms, in various research collaboration. So I know them very well personally. But over to Dilanthi first.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Srinath. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think this event is really timely. So I need to thank you for leading this ECR side of things at CIB, because particularly with the current situation, I think this sort of motivation is very timely. So I suppose, very briefly to sort of to summarize, I suppose what I think I started my career way back in 1990, actually in, of course, Srinath, sort of I know you since then, so it's been a long time. But this may look planned, but really speaking, it wasn't. So what I try to do is to make use of opportunities around me, with all the drawbacks that came in on my way in between. And I'm pleased with that balance that I have achieved between publications, grants, PhD students, presence, esteem, and so on and so forth. And most importantly, balancing with my family life, being a wife and a mother. So I suppose, I think, in my view, I'm hoping that the early career researchers who are listening today, will get some motivation out of this. Sort of, I think having other responsibilities shouldn't be a barrier. So early years, again, there was delays in me getting into the university to do my undergraduate degree because of the civil disturbances in the country. So there have been so many drawbacks, but of course, I very successfully completed my undergraduate degree, and then the middle years actually sort of, I suppose I can say where I did my PhD, and then tried to be part of CIB. I became a member of CIB in 1999, if I can recall correctly, and tried to make use of opportunities in attending conferences as a junior researcher. Started writing research papers at very early stages, and also sort of to create links. I think that is really important. I'm sure we will revisit that later about the importance of links. And I suppose I got my first grant, if I can recall correctly, in 1997 in the UK for £5,000. So I was over the moon. And I will share with you the details of that later. So that is actually sort of my middle years. Then, of course, I very quickly managed to climb the ranks to be a research fellow, then a lecturer, then a senior lecturer. And then in 2006, I was promoted to be professor. So again, I suppose, the grants, the journal publications, and the networks, and members of so many committees actually sort of helped me enormously in that sense. I think in that sense, I suppose I have sort of some key points that I want to mention as takeaways for you. I suppose, you need to take the next step. It shouldn't be first or the last, and you need to build up from a point of departure. And also you need to be opportunist and have a very good antenna. I think I want to highlight that in very clear terms. You really need to open your eyes to see what is happening around you. And also, particularly at early stages, you need to invest 10 in order to get one back. That is how it works. And in that sense, you will be willing to compromise your weekends. If you just sit back and relax and to expect your institution to allocate time in advance, it won't happen. I'll tell you, it won't happen. So you really need to invest 10 in order to get one back. So that is actually the motto I used to have during my very early stages. And also you need to be patient. Everest Mountain wasn't climbed overnight. So you really need to believe that the success does not happen overnight. And also along with applying for grants, you really need to publish, and we will get into that a bit later. And also sort of, be professional in whatever you do, so that you in demonstrating that you can rely on, other people can rely on you. And also try to do whatever you do in a very professional manner. For example, articulating your arguments in a best possible way, and also present yourself well in all occasions. Be prepared yourself, be prepared, and then make use of opportunities. And also, one other thing that I want to emphasize is you need to have a thick skin. You of course, sometimes it's difficult, there are drawbacks, there are sort of disappointments, but over years, I'm sure you have to develop a thick skin, otherwise it's very difficult to survive. So that is actually the reality. And also, don't try to please everyone. That is not possible. You will have supporters and as well as enemies. That is the life. And also, with that, do not let the behavior of others destroy your inner peace. That is really important. If you do not have the right inner peace, you will not be able to do anything. And believe in yourself and make a start and learn from the experience. And as a starting point, work with colleagues who have the experience and are willing to help. So I'm sure you will be able to sort of take these points and to move it from there. So that is how I have actually sort of achieved what I have done in my academic career during the last 30 odd years. Thank you very much, Srinath.
Thank you, Dilanthi. That was really wonderful to understand for many people how this type of characters come into the world and how they are made. So let's go to Suzanne. Suzanne, I would like to invite you to talk about your career pathway, which has taken another different course, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you, Srinath. Well, I think a lot of the things that Dilanthi said are just great words of wisdom, really, and I've learned from Dilanthi over the years, so I really appreciate being on a panel with you and Srinath as well. I guess my career was really started, I did an engineering degree and then worked in the construction sector for a little bit, and then went back to do a PhD. My PhD was structured in a way that the first year you did a little bit of tutoring, and the second year you did a little bit more lecturing, and then in the third year you were actually lecturing as well as finishing your PhD. And so I did a PhD and a certificate for teaching in higher education at the same time. And the expectation was that we would become lecturers straight away. I decided to leave the UK, so my degrees were done in the UK. During my PhD, so I did my PhD at Oxford Brookes University. What happened was I realised that there were some really good universities around me doing construction management. So the world at the time, so this is the early 90s, was dominated by probably 3 or 4 universities. It was Salford, Reading, Loughborough and UMIST, and they were pretty much the dominant characters, and they had set up ARCOM at the time as well. And it just so happened that my PhD supervisor was quite good friends with somebody at Reading and said, oh, you should join ARCOM. So ARCOM was my first kind of experience of understanding the academic world, and I think we can't underestimate how important networking is in the terms of understanding how the academic world works, but also creating all those links. I still have colleagues and friends from my time up my first couple of years at ARCOM. However, I left the UK and came to New Zealand, and I took a postdoc for a couple of years, and then an opportunity opened at the University of Auckland, where I spent a substantial amount of my career. In fact, I spent just over 20 years of my career at the University of Auckland, really just moving through the ranks. So, like as Dilanthi explained, you kind of have setbacks, but you also have years that are really good. Sometimes grants come in, sometimes they don't. You have to apply for them. Sometimes the relationships work well, other times they don't. It's just life. And then I moved a couple of years ago to Massey University because they were starting a new school of built environment. And this has been a really exciting move for me because it's also meant I've moved into a leadership role within the university, as well as retaining my links within the School of Built Environment. So in terms of grants, I think the kind of things that worked were starting really small. My first grant was a 10,000 New Zealand dollar grant. It was very small. I was tapped on the shoulder to do it. It was someone had the grant and didn't want to do it, and they just said, "You want to take over this grant?" It was great. I didn't apply for it. It was just an eye-opener in how to do things, because I had a very good mentor at the time that was helping me through, and gradually built up from there to a couple of years ago, we won a major $10 million New Zealand grant, which is the biggest one that I've been on. So that probably just gives you a bit of a background of where I am now.
Thank you, Suzanne. So into the next part, what we are going to do is I'm going to pose a series of questions both to Dilanthi and Suzanne from time to time to provoke some discussion and understanding. The first one, so to Dilanthi, first, what would be the three most important things an ECR should do in planning their research grant application? If you can elaborate on those key points, that will be great.
Yeah, I think that is a very, very valid question, Srinath. I think this is directly linked to what I mentioned about what I followed in my career in terms of having an antenna. You really need to keep your eyes open, and nobody will come to you to sort of say, "Oh, hey, this is a call that you can respond to." Nobody will tell you. You need to capture what is happening around you. So even now, I do that almost every week. I do a really good scan, and but now it is much easier than when it was for me 30 years ago, because now you can do anything via the mobile and the social media, internet, whereas at the time I didn't even have a mobile, to be honest with you. So in that sense, I think the ECRs, the current generation of ECRs are much more better placed. So in that sense, the first thing you need to do is to identify the right calls. The term right is very, very important. So you really need to start from somewhere. And in doing so, you need to know your limits. But having said that, you need to be brave and to be ambitious. But achieving that balance is really important. I have seen people belong to both ends. Of course, there's a group of early career researchers who think that they can never do things. Oh, well, this is not for me. I haven't got experience. This is too big for me. I haven't got the time. That is one end. And the other end is, I suppose, the people who are over-ambitious. And as the first grant, they want to apply for £500,000. Again, that is actually not practical. So, of course, things are not black and white. There are various shades of gray in between. So you really need to start from somewhere, and you should know your limits. And also, you need to remember that funders are looking for real expertise where it can be found. I think that is really important. Don't be disheartened by the position that you are in or at the university that you are working for. In my view, it really doesn't matter. What matters is the real expertise. So you really need to emphasize that. And you need to read the call for proposals inside out. I mean it inside out, not half-baked cakes. You really need to get a good understanding about what is expected, what needs to do in order to meet that call. And once you do that, you can start developing the project idea. That means the call versus your own strengths. So in that sense, my first most important thing I want to emphasize is identifying the right call. And the next one is identifying the potential partners and start communication. Nowadays, individual grants are very, very rare. I suppose, I haven't come across any grants that are directly targeted at individuals. But of course, there are schemes that individuals can apply, but of course, that also needs to have partners. So in terms of partners, I here mean the co-investigators or the project partners. This is extremely important. So in order to do that, you can't do anything with a blank sheet. You need to put your ideas down and develop the initial concept note. You know, I always sort of do half a page, 1 page with the idea, and then to share that with your contacts and partners to see whether they are interested in coming on board. And of course, a lot of calls actually define who the partners that you should have in the calls. It can be local, regional, national, European, international, Australasia, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, identifying the potential partners is very much part of the team working. So that is extremely important. So that is my actually second point. And then the third very important point is you need to work with your organization. You need to remember that, of course, you are governed by your institutional rules, regulations, and the procedures. So you, in the very initial stages of responding to a call, you need to make contact with your university officials who are in charge of, we call it pre-contract. Different universities have different terminology. We have in my university, we have a pre-contract office. So there are people who are linked to different subject disciplines, whereas we have one for built environment, applied sciences, engineering. So we need to be in touch with those people to make sure that universities are supportive of us applying to that call. Otherwise, what will happen is if you start working without communicating that with your organization, you might invest a lot of time, and if the university decides that that scheme is not for the university, you will be very disappointed and disheartened, and that will actually damage your reputation if by any chance if you have already got the commitment from partners. So having your organization on board is extremely important, because why I'm saying that is, even though that you apply to grants, generally the agreement is with the institution, with all the legal proceedings, the grants and so on and so forth. It is the university who signs the grant, not you as the individual. In that sense, it is extremely important that you keep your institution in the picture. So in that sense, I suppose those are the 3 points, but in that sense, I think you really need to respect the call requirements and the criteria. And the second point that I emphasize is you need to bring in an excellent group of researchers, but within a manageable partnership. This is another mistake that a lot of people do. Some proposals do not have partners. Some proposals have far too many. I'm sure Srinath will get into these discussions later, but these are the 3 key points that I want to emphasize to you. And if you follow these, I'm sure you will be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dilanthi. That was a really wonderful piece of advice, and there, because they are the very essence of understanding what needs to be done. If you're an early career researcher, there is nobody behind your shoulder tapping you and asking you to do things. You have to take the initiative and go the distance. And for that, you need to have this type of understanding of the playing field. If you don't understand that, you're not going to be successful in this. So this advice is extremely important. And something that I would like to understand, you to understand there is also, you need to know where to look for the relevant information. Dilanthi was talking about scanning, scan the horizon, scan what is out there. And you need to know and develop an understanding where to look for such opportunities as well. So that's key things, and it depends on where to look for, depends on the specific field that you are in. Perhaps we can come to that later on in our discussions. So I'll move on to Suzanne on this. Suzanne, if you can talk about what are the categories of funding available, and how would an ECR identify which source of funding to tap first?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a really important question that Dilanthi's also touched on. The thing that I think when you're starting out, the knowing your research office and understanding the support structures that can be provided by your research office is really critical, because they have a lot of experience, they have a lot of expertise. They also can connect you to people who have been successful at the grants that you might want to go to. So initially, I think for when you're in your early career stage, quite often there's internal university grants. Those internal university grants, certainly at the institution I'm at, tend to go to early career researchers. And the idea is to get you kind of like used to having a go at putting a proposal together, submitting a proposal, getting a small team together, maybe doing a pilot study, and maybe trying to build up some partnerships. So I think the first kind of approach is to really start looking at, what does your own institution offer? What are the internal grants that they might offer, either within your own department or within your own university? If they're university grants, and they tend to be a little bit bigger than school or department grants, if they're university grants, start thinking about those partnerships that you want to make across the university. You know, as Dilanthi says, going alone is no longer an option with research grants, and that tends to be the case within university grants. So start thinking about, who are those people that I know, join an ECR group, start an ECR group, even better, because that shows that you've got kind of like initiative going and you'll start getting noticed by your own institution. If you get noticed, it's quite often people will start saying, oh, you know, we can connect you to this person, or, oh, you're doing work in climate change. Hey, there's a whole group over here doing work in climate change, or you're doing work in, you know, productivity. There's the business school have got productivity or innovation. They've, you know, and suddenly it's quite quick. You can quite quickly see institutional connections that you can make. And that's with early career researchers and their teams, but also then you can start getting connected nationally. So the next category is really to look at those national grants. So and national grants can be government grants, or they can be professional institution grants. They can be obviously, like CIB has some grants. Also, I guess the national grants, you might be looking at industry. So it's important to be kind of a little bit strategic about what you're trying to do. Know your core, what your core fundamental research is about, because if you're kind of all over the place, you don't develop the expertise and people never look at you as an expert in something. So it's really important that you kind of like start developing, what is my core expertise? And then I suppose one of the good things is that there's lots and lots of opportunities to join things. There's lots of opportunities to join professional institutions, lots of opportunities to join kind of government type opportunities where they might be giving out, they might be having conferences, local, national conferences. As an ECR, those are the kinds of things that I did and I encourage people to do. So national grants, they come in many different forms. They're either at government level, professional institution, or private organisations. And then I guess the next level up is to move to the international grants. And I think the international grants much harder to get. And you really need an in-country partner that wants you to be part of that grant, because you have specific expertise that they can't cover within their own country or within their own organisation. That's not to overlook the fact that a lot of national grants want you to have international partners. So I think trying to develop some of those partnerships with international organisations is really critical when you're an early career researcher. And my advice is, you know, CIB has the excellent platform for doing that. I as a researcher, use CIB, and whenever I went on sabbatical, I would look through the list of CIB and say, I'm going to that institution. I just would call up a CIB member and say, I want to come and visit. And 9 times out of 10, I was welcomed with open arms. So I think in terms of categories of funding, you know, you've got that local, then that national, and then that international grant. And you need to work up through the system, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, you got a very good understanding of what type of organizations, what type of the various categories, local to national to international, various categories of grants available. At this point, I would like to encourage you to engage in the chat function available, where you can ask questions. The panel members and others will try to answer you as much as possible. And then also we will, if we cannot answer anything, we'll take it on to discuss later on. So the next one to Dilanthi, I'm just wanting to look at get into the shoes of ECR, early career researcher. How would you find a collaborator for your research? It's often difficult for early career researcher to find suitable partners. And then who are the suitable partners? Which kind of people that you should be looking for? And just a brief of what is your take on collaborating with different kinds of researchers when applying for grants?
I think that is again very valid question, Srinath. I think as we all know, nowadays individual based grants are very rare. Even as I sort of said, there are grants such as advanced researcher grants, early career grants, but of course you will be the only applicant, but all these grants also now need partners. So in that sense, I don't think that there are any calls out there where you can just do a proposal by yourself. So in that sense, having partners is really important. So getting back to, I think, reflecting on how I started actually building up partnerships. Again, nowadays, you know, with social media, it is much easier to be linking up with people. But during my time, when I started way back in 1997, as I sort of said, I didn't even have a mobile phone, and Facebook and all these things are quite, you know, not even around. So, but I suppose again, you know, attending conferences at the time really helped me to get to know people. And again, I think you all need to realize that you can't, particularly with this concept of having the need to have partners in grants, you can't actually survive on your own. Always everything has to be teamwork. That is really important. So in that sense, identifying the right mix of disciplines is very important. So I suppose what you can do is you need to start locally. Again, Suzanne actually highlighted about tapping the internal grants. So start locally initially. Don't, of course, it is good to be ambitious and brave, but you need to start from somewhere, and starting at your doorstep is the first step that a lot of you can do. So start locally at your own institutions, your faculties, colleges, schools, departments, whatever you call it. So that will be actually sort of a good starting point. And the next one is actually among the local stakeholders. It can be sort of other local universities, education providers, employers, local and other regional national authorities. So that is again at your doorstep. So you will be able to communicate with them without much of an effort or resources. So that can be your next step. And then you can actually move into your sort of in-country partners, national level partners, and who are sort of appropriate for your call. And then you need to then think about international partners. Nowadays, again, a lot of calls actually need asking for international partners in their calls. So again, you know, your colleagues, organizations, again, I think the good thing is that the world has become quite small. Now, as I sort of said, I'm very good friends with Suzanne, who lives on the other side of the world. Srinath, I know him since 1990, so he's on that side of the world. And there are so many people, or, you know, I can see in this, you know, in this audience that I know of, but we are sitting all over the place. I think that is a very positive thing in creating partnerships. So, but you need to remember that partners are not individual, they are organizations, but with individual connections. That is how we describe partners in research projects. So again, cooperation is based on trust and confidence. One thing that I can assure you is, of course, there are people with whom that I have been, I'm working over many proposals, many years, and with some people it will be just once, first and the last. So that is really important as well. So you need to bring in a concrete added value to the project, and the gone are the days that you add a partner just because that he or she is a friend of yours. It doesn't work like that, because we all are actually operating in a very competitive world. So it is extremely important that you identify the right partners. And also in doing identifying partners, this concept of equitable partnerships is really important. The meaning is, again, this is something that lot of funding bodies are very concerned about. So it is actually to do with joint agenda setting, mutual agreement, and the mutual agreement on meaning and the purpose of the work. You really need to be communicating with your partners. It shouldn't be, and it cannot be, just one-way traffic. And also this term about co-creation of common vision and goals, and also fair recognition of interest and incentives to all partners. That is really important. The funders, of course, I sit in funding evaluation committees at various levels, European, international, British Council, research councils, and so on and so forth. One thing that we always evaluate is that whether there's this co-creation of equitable partnerships with fair recognition. And also the partnership should be substantial, genuine, and meaningful. We shouldn't be, again, adding people for other ulterior motives. I'm not going to say what they are, but we need to be very mindful. So we need to be adding partners purely for substantial and genuine, meaningful collaborations with clear clarity and roles of responsibilities. And if you're leading the proposal, you really need to provide positive leadership. Of course, in the partnership, you have very senior academics like Suzanne and Srinath, and also it can be very junior academics. But having said that, we all need to be treating on equitable basis, and also you should be willing to provide mentoring also as part of that. So in that sense, building mutual trust, transparency, and accountability is very important. And also, at very early stages of developing a partnership, you really need to identify a method for dealing with disagreements and conflicts, because we are dealing with people, and we all are part of different cultures. And so there can be disagreements. If it is not, I think, then that is not real in my view. Positive disagreements and conflicts can be adding value to the grant. So, but you need to identify methods of dealing with them. And also, one other point is that there need to be, based on the call, there need to be full consideration of relevant developing country context where you are having partners. For example, in my case, I'm having a lot of research. At the moment, we have 18 funded grants, and within that, I counted, and then we included the statistics in our reports. I have 145 international partners in these 20 grants. So, but a lot of them are coming from developing countries. So you need to actually consider that positively. And also invest time in partnerships. You can't actually expect to create a very positive partnership overnight. Building partnerships is a long-term process. Build time into the project and request funds for face-to-face meetings. I think that is really important. And again, one other point that I really want to emphasize in creating partnerships is your online presence. Yeah, so you really need to assess and shape your online visibility, because it is very important in increasing your ability to part of a world-leading partnership. People just go and sort of find out who you are and where you are, and then you should be able to be exposed in that sense. So people will take you seriously if you if you are very, very visible. So in that sense, you really need to invest time to know how you appear online. And also gone are the days, in my view, where academics could rely only on their position. Position really doesn't matter. You really need to be visible. And also, we all need to be a part of a growing trend of academics and researchers to strengthen our online profiles, be it through our own websites, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, so that people can actually see you. Then it will be the building of partnerships can be two-way process. You are there to invite others, and the others will invite you. If you do not have the online presence, you will go nowhere. So those are actually some of the points that I want to emphasize. And if you start, you will be successful. But again, make sure the key terms, equitable partnerships, and fair recognition, and the co-creation. Thank you.
Thanks, Dilanthi. That's quite a bit of things to consider for everyone. Suzanne, moving on quickly to on looking at how important networking is for early career researchers. That is related to finding partners in itself. We all have various networks, and how important it is to network for researchers. And if you can elaborate using your own experience, that will be great.
Yeah, I think networking and collaboration really go hand in hand. I mean, you need to develop your networks, and my own experience was really through, as I said earlier, ARCOM was the first kind of networking opportunity that I had as an academic. I had local university networks, but they were really friendships. They were doing their PhDs in other areas to me, and they were friendships. But it's been really interesting that over the years we've kind of come backwards and forwards to each other in various times. So you can't underestimate those very early stages of doing your PhD in a group, and you're all kind of experiencing the same kind of thing. I think the way in which ARCOM was a way of developing was the way that I first developed some networks, and then gradually it's built up through various different conferences, different online organizations. Obviously, CMBR is the big one that used to be much more prominent, but CIB I've used a lot as a researcher. In terms of you meet lots and lots of people. I mean, I guess when you get to a certain point, you realize this is my area of expertise and this is what I love doing. And these are the places I need to go every year, because this is where I meet my network, and my collaborators are usually part of that wider network. It's not to say that you don't continuously add people in to that network and build and grow that network, but I think at a certain point in your career, you kind of know that where your expertise lies, and who in the world is doing the kinds of work that you do, and who you need to follow as an expert to kind of keep up with your field. And so I would say in the early stages, you're trying to develop that expertise, you're trying to add value to a research grant, or you're trying to identify and define your own niche. And I think the networking is really important for that, because you can see where people are doing similar work and where your work aligns or doesn't align with people's work. But as you get through your career, I think that becomes a little bit more defined, and therefore your networks become more kind of concrete. You know who to work with, and when to work with those people, and why you want to work with them. And I think it's really interesting that the Dilanthi put two words, trust and confidence, in people. It's absolutely critical that you have trust in the people that you collaborate with, and confidence in those people. And I think that comes out of that initial networking, building up a relationship, starting some small collaborations, and then moving into those bigger collaborations.
Thanks, Suzanne. As time is catching up, And I would give at the end a few minutes for people, participants to ask any question. But before completing this round, couple of quick questions. I need a short answer from Dilanthi and Suzanne. For this one, what are the typical criteria considered by funding organizations when evaluating grant applications generally? I know it's quite a detailed topic, but in a minute, if you can.
I think Srinath, I think again, it varies from funder to funder, but just to sort of summarize the key points, number one, science excellence. Number two, impact. Number three is quality and efficiency of the implementation. So the third one is very much on the project management, partnership, and the leadership. Impact is like, how, of course, what you're expecting from the work, and the science is number one. So these are the three categories. So different funders actually have different breakdowns, but we can actually map every criteria under these three headings, in my view: excellence, impact, quality, and efficiency of implementation. So a quick answer, Srinath.
I think really Dilanthi's answered that, but I would say that a funder is looking for a trusted team. So they're also, they're not going to put a lot of money into a kind of brand new team that's got no track record. So I think, one of the criteria that they look for is, the combination of team. Has it got some capacity building in that team, but has it got kind of trusted researchers that maybe have delivered before, and that they have confidence that they can invest in there, because that's basically what it is. If it's public money, they're publicly investing in this team to deliver something of value for them, and so they want to have confidence that that team is the right team. So I think it circles back around to some of the things that Dilanthi talked about earlier, which is kind of collaborations, partnerships, and developing and getting those right combinations. I think that funding agencies are really quite clued up now to where people put in they package up and pad up research grants. They don't like seeing that. They want experts. They want experts with a combination of capacity building, and they don't want a lot of people in a grant that are just doing the same thing that they can't kind of identify as adding value to that grant. So alongside the elements that Dilanthi talked about, which is obviously science excellence and the impact, I think looking at that trusted team is critical.
Suzanne, with that, I would like to add another point to discuss for the discussion about projecting your profile in a research grant application. How important it is, and what are the factors that you think ECR should consider?
I think this is quite a difficult one for an ECR, because quite often an ECR might be trying out lots of different kind of pathways, and they're trying to work out exactly where their points of difference are and where their kind of expertise might lie. I think it's aligning your profile with the direction of the research grant is important. So quite often you'll see people will put in absolutely everything, including that they, won a sports prize at a university sports club, and that's just so not relevant for a research application. They want to tie their research, the direction of the grant, with where they add expertise. And I think, it doesn't matter that you don't have 30 or 40 publications in the field. It's enough to have a couple of key important publications that align with a research grant, because when you're an ECR, it's all about building those networks, those collaborations, and learning from the team. You're not going to be out in front running a multi-million-dollar grant on the whole. I mean, some people do that, but generally you're going to be part of a much bigger team, and your role in that team is to learn and understand how to develop your career. And so I think having good mentors, but aligning your profile with the research grant is critical.
Yeah, that's good. Dilanthi, if you can come up on the same thing.
I think again, I think Suzanne actually really nailed it in terms of, I think, again, we really need to sort of understand that we need to respond to the call. So that is actually the core here. And most of the funders now actually for CVs, they need the two-page CV in most of the circumstances. So, but the two-page CV cannot be static. Again, depending on the call, you need to actually how should I say, tailor-made your two-page according to the experience you need, because you have a lot of experiences, or maybe that that you need to actually sort of how should I say, identify the actual experiences, be it publications, events, organizing committees, and so on and so forth, which are directly applicable to the call. That is very, very important, because it really doesn't matter that you haven't got 2 pages to write. Maybe you have 1 page, as far as it actually directly addresses the needs of the call. That is what matters. So I think, just extracting the right information is really important. But as I sort of said before, of course you can have your overall profile online, so that if the I'm sure that people, even though that you are not supposed to do it, I'm sure we all do that. When you come across an academic in a grant application, you just go and type the name on to see what comes up. I think that is actually the reality. We all are humans, we all do that. So in that sense, having your profile, every information out there about your sort of, as Suzanne said, your sports activities at the university sports club, can be listed there as under other information, but not in the CV. So in that sense, I think just directing your profile is really important.
Yeah, I would call it like having the focus on the area of your CV that is relevant to the research grant application. That's in essence what Dilanthi was talking about. Moving on to the last question, again, I would like both of you to answer, contribute. Winning a grant is one aspect. So you got the grant, now is delivering on what you have acquired or what you have managed to win. What is your main advice on how to manage a research grant once you've got it? Very quickly, as we are running out of time.
Very, very quickly, I think again, project management is really important. I like kind of, again, my approach is, I think I like a very much hands-on approach. But having said that, I expect the researchers to take the responsibility and to sort of give some form of leadership. I simply do not want micromanaging. I do not expect researchers to copy me into every email. Then it won't help them to develop themselves. So in that sense, I suppose, of course, we need to have, as principal investigators, we need to have a kind of a very proactive approach, because at the end of the day, we need to deliver what we promise. So if you just, once you get the grant, if you sort of forget about it, oh, well, something will happen at the end of the day, it won't. You need to keep an eye out, but achieving that balance and to give some responsibility and the authority for early career researchers to sort of get on with the task is really important. And through that, they will actually get to know a lot of partners, new people, and so on and so forth. And I think that is really important. And also meeting the milestones and the reporting and everything, because again, the project management is on both academic side and also non-academic side. Of course, at the same time, we need to deliver what we have promised in the application, while maintaining the budget within the budget, and also while maintaining all the relationships, and also most importantly, while publishing the research. So it is actually not an easy task, but you will get there. So for example, maybe I really enjoyed that process, and perhaps that is why I'm still here bidding after 30 years, and sort of it is quite an enjoyable process when you actually get used to that system. But of course, you know, you need to invest a lot of time in doing so. So that is actually my style, and maybe different people have different ways of doing it. But that is how I always sort of get the ECRs to have responsibility and accountability and in delivering research. Thank you.
Thanks, Dilanthi. Suzanne?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I wrote down a few points that Dilanthi was just talking about. You need good project management skills. So go on a project management course, because you know that will set you up for all the grants that you end up getting. But it's also just generally a really good skill to have. You need to know how to do budgets. I mean, if you know, look at budgets and manage. If you're PI, you're responsible for the budget. So make sure that you kind of know how to budget and what a budget looks like and how to manage that, or get help to manage that, because usually your finance person within your organization will help you with the budget, and that's what they're there for. That's what they do, and they're quite good to talk to about how the budgets work. Your plan of operation, usually you've identified a plan. You've got a grant because you've got a good idea and you've got a good plan, and you've got these outputs that you've promised. So, stick to the plan as far as you can. I mean, it's not always easy to stick to a plan. If something is not going right, then you need to just keep your funder, up to date. And I think things around delivering your outputs, if you say you're going to deliver something, deliver it, because there's nothing worse than a funder coming to you and saying, hey, I was waiting for something 2 weeks ago and it still hasn't arrived. It's not just embarrassing for you, it's embarrassing for your colleagues, and it's embarrassing for your institution. So, it's better to say ahead, hey, there's something coming up, something's changed, I need to do a variation. I mean, COVID has affected a lot of our research grants and has created like a need to do variations. So you need to keep your funders happy. And I think those are the kind of critical things around once you get a grant. Once you get a grant, it's good to celebrate that you get a grant, but that's only the start. The success of the grant is keeping your funders happy and delivering the outputs that you said you were going to deliver, or more outputs, so that will lead you on to other opportunities, either with that funder or other funders.
I think very quickly, Srinath, if you can give me 1 minute, I think Suzanne,
Sure.
point about the budgeting. I think that is really important. Again, I have actually met colleagues who actually sort of say, oh, well, I have nothing to do with finances. So they very quickly sort of pass that on to the university authorities. I really don't think that is actually the right approach. You are responsible for the budget. You should get some idea about budgeting. It doesn't mean that you need to be a chartered accountant to do that, but we all should have common sense. We manage our household budgets, don't we? So in that sense, I think, so that you can actually map the budget with the deliverables. So in making use of the maximum, the value for money from the budget, I think that is really important. Transferring from this pot to that pot within limits, within the rules, and keeping an eye out on the budget is extremely important. I'm sure that what I do is, at the moment, I suppose, of course, I give that responsibility to the researchers so that they are fully aware of the deliverables and the costs associated with that. And they always come up with ideas, sort of saying, oh, well, we are saving from this. Can we do this? And can we do that? I think that is really important. If we leave it to the university team to do that, you will, because they have so many other things to do. Your project is just one task for them. So, but you really need to actually keep a track of the budget. Again, as I sort of said, you don't need to be a chartered accountant. Having basic accounting skills will help, which you actually do at your home anyway. I think that level of expertise is more than sufficient. So I think just to keep an eye out on the budget is really important.
Yeah, thank you, Dilanthi. That's we had a very fruitful, long discussion about, so it's the time for a little bit of Q&A. So I would request anyone to put their hand up on Zoom, and I can spot, then I will direct the question to that person. So in the meantime, you are also encouraged to put any question on the chat, then we'll ask that question from the panel. So, and if you want to direct the question to one of the panel members, you can do so as well. So there's a question until people come up with questions. There's one question already on the panel, on the chat. This question is about ECR, who had been trying for years to get a grant, has not been successful. What should they do? Should they then go and try for the next level of grants? Or what kind of advice you can give?
I think, Srinath, again, as I sort of said, irrespective of your stage, and of course, nowadays ECRs aren't defined by the age or whatever, that age barrier is removed in most of the cases. I think you need to start from somewhere. So I suppose, you really need to keep on trying until you get a grant that is manageable. That is in my view. I suppose if you try a lot of grants as an ECR, and to moving into the next stage will not work because you haven't got any experiences under your belt in terms of project management and so on and so forth. So you really need to actually start, again, as Suzanne emphasized, and also I pointed that out also, even getting an internal grant, you can actually put that in your CV to demonstrate that you have actually you have been successful in a grant and you have won it and you have managed it successfully. So without having any baggage behind you, within inverted commas, going for the next stage won't work, in my view.
I think Dilanthi as well. I think track record is really important in larger grants. So you do need to build up, but you probably need to work out why are you not getting a grant? What is it that's holding, that's kind of affecting your ability to get a grant against other people's ability. I think Dilanthi mentioned a really important thing about having a really good antenna, because if you can align your research with critical international areas, such as at the moment climate change. Most of us can align our research somehow with climate change, and then there's lots of funding available for climate change and climate change research. So if you've got research that you can align in some way with some kind of societal problem, I think, and find the right team, you'll be successful. You don't have to lead a grant, you just need to be part of a grant and be part of a team, and from that usually other opportunities come. So don't worry about not being PI and not worrying about that. Join a team, or join a successful team, or find a mentor that can help you join teams or be part of a team. I think is important. It's not necessarily about winning yourself a grant, because being part of a grant is really important as well. Someone's asked here, sorry, I was just reading the...
Yeah, there was a question about can people directly approach people, or should they, what is the best way to approach, like use networks like CNBR to approach people, or directly approach people? Which one is the better option? There was a question like that.
Personally, I think they're both valid. I found that question quite interesting. I think they're both valid. I think there's no right way, and our careers just go in and out of phases. Sometimes we've got more time, sometimes we've got less time to do things. We might have a young family, we may have to slow our careers down a little bit, or we may speed up at certain times. But this idea that you just can't come across people who you have a synergy with, and or they've got an interesting paper out that you think, I'd really like to know something about that paper and ask a few more questions. What more are you working on? But I would say, like, there are some people who it's very difficult to get responses from. Don't give up. Either they're very busy, but they're part of a team and you can talk to their team members, or, you know, or just keep trying, because, you know, I answer LinkedIn conversations all the time. I always respond to PhD students. I try and make myself available to ECRs around the university, but there's only one of me, but I know that my colleagues are doing the same. So if I can't help, I usually pass the people on to one or two of my colleagues that I think will help. So coming back to your question, you know, there's lots of different ways to approach people, and CMBR is one, CIB and the CIB platform is another one, personal introductions, networks, conferences, they all add value to your and richness to your academic career.
Yeah, talking about networking and conferences, CIB is World Congress is happening next year, and we are having the conference in Melbourne. And I would invite all early career researchers, approach your universities, come through your universities and participate. There is going to be several travel grant opportunities. I am sure Mike will be very interested in talking about it, and we'll be making some formal announcements as well in due course. Dilanthi, you want to come on the question? You
mean about
the approaching through networks and
yeah. I think Suzanne actually sort of summarize the core points really, and I suppose as Suzanne also sort of said, you know, for example, I can actually share with you some you know, for example, last August I actually took some annual, you know, last month I took some annual leave, and so again, you know, because of course even though that August is a kind of a holiday season in the UK, it doesn't work like that in the rest of the world. So I had so much of emails, and then since there was no response, people have contacted my friends just to make sure that I'm okay, and then, you know, that I'm angry with them, annoyed, whatever, that I have been sick, and then, you know, so, but again, as Suzanne said, it's only just one person. So again, I think, you know, then I think that from that perspective, I think people should have a bit of patience. So as Suzanne said, I will also try my level best to sort of respond to emails, and you know, again, now there are so many ways of contacting you. You know, I think I can list about 10 ways, and then some people actually try to contact you via all mechanisms. We'll try and actually respond, but sometimes it is not easy. So in that sense, I think my advice is perhaps, I suppose, if you need some input, and perhaps I think maybe contacting a member of that research team, because there are again very senior, very experienced people like postdocs and research assistants, and maybe to contact them, and as a starting point, we will help. So it is actually sometimes it is I fully agree with Suzanne, it is sometimes difficult, because I think August was, you know, I was people started ringing me, my friends, asking, you know, whether I'm okay, because, you know, some people from some parts of the world have contacted them to sort of see that, you know, no response, and then, you know, to be honest, I was on leave. So thinking, you know, issues like that, again, you know, achieving that balance, you know, having a bit of patience, and then, of course, you know, as Suzanne said, it's just we all are sort of individuals, and we all have sort of other things, you know, including sort of sorting out the house, ironing, going to the supermarket, doing cooking. You know, we all have those jobs also, in addition to managing projects. So I think having that understanding is very important. Yes.
Yeah, that sums up basically the situation in a very realistic, practical, and down to earth way. I think we had a very long discussion about. I'm sure there are lots of questions, a lot of things that we could discuss. And if you find this useful, please leave your comments on when we have our YouTube recordings available. Put your comments there, or put your comments to CIB, and we'll be happy to consider those. And we have a dedicated team working, a committee working on early career researchers. So we are happy to consider your suggestions for future activities. There are further activities happening. I'll leave at that point for Mike to come in and talk about those as well. Thank you. Thank you, Dilanthi. Thank you, Suzanne, for your contributions, significant contributions.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean,
Thank you.
Dilanthi, Suzanne, just an incredible conversation. Srinath, thank you for leading this. Just incredible. We had, I think at one point, 112 folks in this webinar. Just extremely, I think we need to do this again. I think we need just incredible advice, career advice, just sage research advice. And, I'm really happy that you also talked about your career and life balance as well, and the importance of that. And we can't thank you enough. This has been just wonderful. And we look forward to seeing everybody at the World Building Congress in Melbourne. Srinath, I hope that Australia is going to allow us to come. So, again, just so much thanks. Great discussion. And please, please email us. Please let us know how we can help further. Thank you.